Welcome to another episode of Raul's World of Synths. I am Raul. Today we're going to be going a little bit further with the Doepfer A106-5 12 decibel type SEM type filter. We're going to be looking at some modulation sort of experiments that we're going to be doing. And there are probably a million ways that you could probably modulate this within your modular system. And I tried a few out myself within my modular here. If you look down at the bottom section here, I have a standard LFO, which you could use for modulation. But up here at the top, next to, let's see, my VCO, I have a envelope generator, which can also be used for modulation. Down here in our bottom section, next to our A111, I have a sequencer immediately to the left of it, this way. So over here is our sequencer. Notes that are generated here can be used for modulation, doing filter tracking or anything like that, since each one of the steps in this sequencer actually outputs a voltage at whatever level that you set according to these little dials here. And then that can be used for modulation. There's other things like, joysticks and, ribbon controllers and such. But for our experiment, I decided to kind of just focus more on a few things that I kind of liked while I was doing some listening and some testing. So it's going to take a little bit of time to sort of patch these things up. So I thought I would break this next modulation section into a couple of videos, as I sometimes do, part 1 and 2. So this is going to be part 1, and it's going to be modulation. So let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully you've enjoyed the series thus far. We've kind of been going through and looking at some of the different things that you can do, some scope views and such. Talked about the basics a little while back, but this time, as I said, modulation. So let's get this kind of patch started. So if I go down to the bottom, we're going to start with our sequencer, and you can see I kind of have my quantizer already set up. Let's see. Let's start at the sequencer. The output voltage from here is actually bringing my CVs from my sequencer into this switch, and output right here. And then I'm going to take these from here over into this section with my quantizer. So these are quantized notes I'm going to be using. And these I'm going to actually patch over into a multiples in my lower section, kind of off on the right side over here. Hopefully you can see that right there. So that's going to be patched there. And then I'm going to actually send it to a couple of destinations. I'm going to send it to our VCO up at the top. So I'm going to take one of the outputs of the multiples and go up to my VCO up here. There we go. And hopefully this isn't obscuring things or anything. And then I'm going to take the second output from our multiples, because these are copies of the signal going in at the top. And I'm going to patch that into our A111. I did try to get them into somewhat of tuning, so hopefully this will sound favorably. And okay, so now we have the voltages going in there. Now we need to kind of mix these signals together. So I'm going to take and I'm just going to do 2 saws. So I'm taking a saw output from my A111 and then going up to kind of my middle section underneath my section with the filter. And over here I have a VCA. This is a linear VCA. I just didn't want to switch out to a exponential VCA, but sound should be okay for us. So I'm going to patch into audio out 1 right there. And then I'm going to get another cable. And then this time I'm going to take the output from my standard VCO on top, the A110. There we go. And I'm going to put that into the linear VCA. All right. And then we're going to take the output of that and go up into our filter. So just taking audio output from there, going up to our filter. Okay. Nothing too crazy yet. And then we're going to take the output of our filter, starting with the low pass, high pass, and then just patch right over here. And we don't have any modulation going yet. So there's our sound so far, prior to filtering. And I have it set kind of in the middle for the notch type filter, so I can adjust my notch effect by dragging the frequency cutoff there. There we go. Slipped a little bit. But I can kind of make this a little more interesting by doing a couple things. If I go down to the bottom section at my sequencer, I have a clock output, which is this right here. This is an old cable. Let me take this one, patch right there. So my clock is going to be coming out and triggering every output of the clock right there. So I'm going to take that up, trigger my envelope generator up here. And I can use this envelope generator in a couple of ways. I can either just take the output and go straight into my filter, do some modulation that way. Which, if you watch the basics video and that little demo I did, you kind of heard this a little bit when we did that demo. So maybe right about there, I like it. Or I can kind of get, let's see, that unplugged and try to send the output from here instead down into this bottom section and trigger my VCA. Prior to it going into the filter. And one is not necessarily better than the other, it's just what you kind of prefer. So let's start with this and then we'll go from here. So let's just do what I would consider, I guess, a standard modulation. We'll just use a low frequency oscillator. Down here in the bottom, our A147 is kind of sitting right next to our VCA, so let's just use that. And I'll just take a standard triangle wave right there. And I'm not sure about how fast that is, but let's just experiment with it. So I'm just going to patch it right there. And we should just hear kind of an upward and downward movement of the filter, so pretty standard. So you can get a nice little sweep. And bring the cut off, I guess, in this case, since we're in the notch. And this isn't bad, but I want to get kind of a nice long filter sweep, so I'm going to bring it over into low pass mode.